beautiful creatures of this equally beautiful planet. It is League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you guys. As the countdown rolls on, we reach today the top 10 in the top 20 players of all time. And honestly, I feel like the top 10 was easier to rank than 20 to 11, because a lot of the guys you can't make an argument against, especially the top 5.
And that's the best thing about getting into the real, juicy parts of doing one of these top 20 lists. Of course, talking about those first 10, it's hard. You're right. It's difficult to.
There's so many guys that could be there.
And that's where you start to see people going, no, I'd have him here. And that's okay. That's one of the things with these type of lists where you can have your pick, your choices on where to go and have these conversations. One of the better things, though, is, as you said, you get to this top 10. You have some of these players, and sure, you can swap where you want them to be numbered. That's all right, too. But you're looking at this top 10. You're looking at the accomplishments. You're looking at the stats, where they've been, what they've done. There's no arguments to be made about these players and what they've accomplished.
And the first one we're looking at today, number 10, just cracking the top 10, is one of the more tricky players to rank, because he's a classic case of some people probably have him outside of the top 20. Some people maybe have them higher than 10. We're talking about Score, old man Score, Mr. KT Rolster himself. And the main reason people maybe wouldn't have him this high is because he hasn't won enough. He's got one LCK title, been to Worlds a couple of times, never really made a deep run. If we got to see Score more at international events, I'm pretty confident to say he would be higher on this list.
It's one of the great players when you're talking about position ranking lists and everything like that. That Score falls into this category, and his legacy of his career. You're talking about the guy that's been there from the very beginning of League of Legends being played professionally and being broadcast in Korea. One of the true pioneers of the scene that we've had, and his accomplishments in his career. You're right that some people would look at his position on this list, look at him included on this list, even in general, and say, what one domestic time he's not even close to doing enough. And that's where I say, if you're just stuck looking at statistical numbers like that, if you're just looking for the result, you are blind, my man, and you're missing out on a lot of amazing talent out there, especially the likes of Score, because anybody that's watched his career, anybody that's stayed with the scene, stayed with knowing what's going on with what he's been doing, this is no surprise that he ends up on our list and that he is one of the greatest of all time.
The man set KDA records at the time as an AD carry, originally on KT. Then he makes the swap to jungle. And not only is he more than stellar and capable jungler, but you're talking about from early 2015 straight through to the end of 2018, maybe even early 2019 when KT wasn't that great, but basically 4 full years where he was consensus never below a top 3 jungler in the LCK. To be in the elite upper echelon of your position in Korea for that long, there's less than, I can count on one hand, players that have done that.
I'd go even further to say top 2. There's no way that you'd even have that type of conversation even to be a top 3, what he was able to put up and put together. As you said, the consistency is a big one for me when you look at how competitive KT Rolster was for that period, that period with that team, that roster that they had been able to put together, and what Score did for them. There's a reason it's old man Score. There's a reason you get to be old man Score and what you've done in the scene, and why you're treated with this type of respect by the people that have been watching the League of Legends for this long. Everybody take your notes, pay your respects to Mr. Old Man Score. Absolutely deserving a spot on this list.
And I feel like I have a little extra soft spot in my heart because he was with KT his entire run. And it's not like, runner up so many times and he was there for all the heartbreak. KT has some of the most heartbreaking losses that you'll ever see. I mean, the the Gangplank ulti steal from Smeb in game 5 against KT, and I don't want to even blame that Smite on Score because it has like 20 health or something ridiculous, but he was so close so many times, and it's not like he was a choke artist or anything. Even when KT was, maybe losing in a gauntlet they shouldn't have, not getting as far as they should have at Worlds, Score was not underperforming.
I don't think you could even you count it on one or two fingers how many times you'd be going through that KT roster run and you'd be saying, you know what, the weak link was score, or you know what, you needed better from him, or you know, this is a tough matchup. He's gonna really. It was never your concern. He was always someone that you could trust, that he was going to deliver the performance. He was going to be vocal in the communications. It's something so vital in what was happening. Score was always the one doing it, and he was always there, one of the center points from one of the longest runs of success we've seen, pretty much outside of picking up multiple titles. And that's really, I think, the problem that people are going to have with him, and why he gets overlooked by some of these people is they look simply at the result value and they say, you know what? Not enough. Only one. What's going on here, my man? Hey, you don't know how sweet that one championship was for us to see with Score getting it.
Individually, without a doubt, one of the most consistent and greatest players that the LCK has ever had. Number 9 on the list. Spicy one. People who have been watching the first couple episodes probably waiting for this guy. Where is he? What? He has to be in the top 20 if some of these other guys, his EU brethren, were there. Well, yes, we do have Caps on the list. This is fully Claps in at number 9. A lot of people probably are going to say number 9 is insanely high for a guy who's, you know, been playing 4 years, really. 2017, he started with Fnatic. But listen, the resume this dude has put together already. We're talking 6 LEC titles in a row, by the way, with 2 different teams. The 4 world championships he's been to, quarterfinals, finals, semifinals. And it feels like he's the first Western player we're talking about since like season 2. Perks has been in here as well, where he's going up against the very best. We're talking Faker, BDD, Chovy, Knight, doesn't matter. And you're saying he can outperform them.
Hey, you can't have a list like this without having Baby Faker appear before Faker. You got to know about that. And yeah, Baby Faker, that nickname doesn't stick with Caps anymore. You know why? No. Because he's become his own. He's deserving of his own name. He is Claps. He is Craps. He is Caps.
He's all of it in one.
Is, man. Exactly. And he's our man, finding himself at number 9 in our list. Cracking the top 10, a lot of people are going to be looking at this and saying, what's going on? Where's his championship? Where, you know, oh my God, he got to the finals twice and he's a big loser.
He got swept in both of them. Ugh.
Hey, guys. He made it to 2 world finals back to back. We're talking about this guy and what he's done internationally. You're going quarters, finals, semis. How many guys have done that within the first 4 international appearances, really, of their career?
How many Western players have done that ever?
None is what I'll tell you. Caps is the very first. What he does, what he brings to the table, how he plays. It's all fantastic stuff. When you're talking about Western players at the very peak, the best of the best, what has been the test? How have you managed to stack up against the best of the best, the most elite, the scariest players coming out of the LCK, coming out of the LPL? Caps has tested. He's been tested, and he has stood up to them time and time again. He has outlaned them individually and then taken those advantages elsewhere and helped his team win against some of these squads as well. You can't say enough about what this young man has done for the European scene and how much he has been a special talent. It'd be crazy to not recognize that now.
He's been hyped up so much within the LEC because he's dominated. He's winning split after split after split, picking up MVPs. But then when he does go international, you have performances like you had at 2019 MSI, at 2020 Worlds, the most recent World Championship. He was playing at an insane level. You had the series against Gen G. Imagine going up opposite BDD and completely outclassing him in every facet of the game 3 games in a row.
Hey, there's only a couple teams that you could be talking about from this past Worlds, a couple players that you could put in your mouth as far as being the players of the tournament, the ones that have been there. I'll tell you what player, what team has someone from the semifinals that you would be talking about in that way? Caps. Caps is the only player that you could be talking about in that light. If you remember the Silas performance from this past Worlds, that type of performance, that type of individual flex of skill and domination, we don't see that nowadays. You don't see that almost at all nowadays, the way that it's played. And I call you back to the ways that you'd see the outplays from Faker, that the famous plays, you know, what was that? Those type of things. That's the level of play that you're seeing from someone like Caps. And to be able to do that now, the way that the game has evolved, the way that teams have evolved, it truly is something special.
And just listen to how other LEC players talk about Caps or regard him. Well, Perks first off said, I'm willing to role swap to get this guy as my starting mid laner. That's how good he is. You remember the list that he would role swap for? I think it was Rookie, Faker, and Caps. That's all you need to say?
Hey, you're talking about who do you want to be your mid laner right now? Like, you're just picking anybody? Well, okay, I'd be looking at someone like Knight. I'd be looking at someone like Rookie. I'd be looking at someone like Faker. And then Caps. How do you not have him in that type of company? And to even be there, there's no arguments. There's no more discussion that needs to be had when you're talking about him in that type of company.
Caps, deserving of the number 9 spot on our list. We roll onwards now. We hit number 8. And this is another name that goes a lot of different ways, and it just depends. I mean, it depends how much you weigh accomplishments as in titles, because your boy Bang has a few titles under his belt, a little bit opposite of what we had with Score, but you see time and time again, people take away Bang's career, take away from it. Oh, he played with Faker. Oh, he was the secondary carry on SKT. Watch SKT in 2015 and 2016 and tell me in a lot of these games that Bang is the secondary carry.
I know I just told you guys that it's not all about the championship. It's not always about having a huge trophy case stacked to the brim.
It helps if you do have it, though.
Exactly. It certainly does help you, and it can help cover up from some other, quote unquote, weaknesses when you're talking about rankings in this part of the list. Bang finds himself in that category because my man absolutely has a stacked trophy cabinet. And you better believe that the majority of those ones, he's got a good share of the workload that was put in to get those trophies. A lot of people, when he came over to the LCS, and yes, I know LCS experiment, not good results. We don't need to talk about those ones.
Despite 2 years of suffering in the LCS, he's still got a 61% win rate. So that's an accomplishment in itself.
Hey, and if you know some of those teams, that is an accomplishment in itself. But when you think about how he played, what he did to still deserve those titles with SKT, you're not getting some of those titles without Bang's contributions, without some of the plays that he was making at the crucial times in those team fights. He's absolutely there. And sure, if you want to put some criticism on his performance in the finals against Samsung, yes, I'll accept that. You want to talk about NA? Sure, we can talk about that. But as I said to start this little talk, my man has got the trophy cabinet to back it up, to cover for some of these talks that you want to have about, I don't like this, I don't like that. Let me just shove another one of these trophies in your face and another one of and then a world's trophy in your face. Hey, and seems to shut you up pretty quick.
People fairly criticized Bang for that 2017 Worlds run. And yes, absolutely, he did underperform that split or that tournament. But people forget that 2018 comes around, and because SKT wasn't good in 2018, they didn't make Worlds. Bang was actually really good. He bounced back in a huge way in 2018. He was more consistent than Faker throughout that whole year.
It's the thing that really is lost when you start thinking back on, okay, well then what was next? It was the LCS experiment, and obviously not the performances that you want to be talking about when you're talking about making it on a list like this. But you're right, 2018 was obviously the indication that, nope, this is not washed up. This is not run out of gas or anything like that. And that's why I think you have some people and obviously organizations still wanting to take that chance on him after everything that's gone on in North America to say, you know what, even in a starting LCK role, even on an organization that has put other pieces into play where we need to be competitive, we want Bang to be our guy.
And he was the guy for SKT, and that's why he's in that number 8 spot. And who knows, career not over for Bang. Maybe he can even build on his legacy a little bit more. A man's legacy who has spanned nearly a decade is number 7 on this list. A fellow marksman in the bot lane. We are talking about Prey, the man who has been around since Season 2. We're talking on Najin Sword. Went to Worlds with 3 different teams. Won an LCK title with 3 different teams, the only one to accomplish that feat. And Prey even stepped away earlier in his career to retire, comes back, and what does he do? Well, he again becomes one of the best AD carries in the world on Longshu and Kingzone.
I love getting to talk about Prey because he is one of the best of all time, one of the most iconic players with iconic plays of all time. Oh, there is just so much positive stuff to talk about with Prey. Love this dude, what he was able to do for the position, for the plays. Usually when we're talking about these type of players and bringing up kind of the history of the past to them, I always like to, look at our younger viewers or people that have, not really been with the scene for too long and say, go look at this play, go research this, because that'll absolutely show you the pinnacle, the peak, why we're so hyped, why we're so excited. With Prey, I don't have to. I don't feel like I have to or should even, because at this point, if you haven't seen the Prey arrow, if you don't know what Prey brings to the table, some of those plays, what he's done in his career, it's not worth it, my man.
Even if you didn't watch then, you've heard of it.
Exactly.
That's how big it is, right?
If you were around esports in general, not even just League of Legends, you would have heard about the shot that Prey hit with that arrow. Incredible stuff, legendary stuff. And then, as you said, even taking a step away and coming back, immediately one of the best ADCs in the LCK during his time with Kingzone, Dragon X, all these things. Longzhu, love what you saw when he came back. Maybe not to come back with KT Roaster. That's maybe not what we're looking at.
That was doomed from the start.
But again, is that on Prey?
Nah.
Absolutely not, my man. But if you're looking at the results, if you're thinking about those iconic plays, are those on Prey? Hell yeah, brother. Those are on Prey.
One of my favorite tournaments out of him was 2018 MSI, and I think it goes a little under the radar because Uzi was absolutely annihilating everybody, but Prey was absolutely incredible that tournament as well. It was just highlight after highlight of him and Uzi dominating the competition, so that's one of my favorite memories of him. And the crazy stat for him, he's been to 5 different world championships. Every single time he lost to the eventual champions. 3 of those were SKT. So, he had that going for him. But every time he lost to the champs, if there was an SKT, I'm confident Prey would have at least one world championship. Big if, but
I feel like you could say that about a lot of pro players.
Probably
unfortunately, the SKT empire, the dynasty, takes another victim, and that is, of course, Prey and his championship chances. Again, though, that is quite an impressive stat, right? Doesn't matter where you're looking as far as how you were where you were ousted out. A lot of people would say, look, everybody that's not the winner at Worlds, yeah, you're the first or second loser, right? You can keep going down that list. Hey, I'll take the loser that lost to the guy that's the winner every single time.
Yeah, it feels better at the end of the tournament. You're like, yeah, well, they won the whole thing, so we would have beaten anyone else. Yeah.
And look, as I said, don't need to tell you to go look at these clips from Prey because he has been so fantastic, so memorable, that if you don't know about it by now, man, you're wasting your time checking it up because you're a lost cause.
And we've seen him, you might say, okay, Rocks Tigers was a pretty stacked lineup. Kingzone was a pretty stacked lineup. But even in the earlier days where he was playing Season 2 and 3, he was a standout performer. Before Longzhu got BDD and Khan, it was Prey and Gorilla on a pretty bad Longzhu team. And they were still, even at that point, it was like, okay, this bot lane, Prey individually, is still world-class, even though he's on a little bit of a scrubby team.
Look, one of my other favorite things when you talk about Prey, of course, is the duo, is having Gorilla with him. I know that's something, hey, Gorilla's not finding himself on this list.
He's close. He's a border player as well.
Yeah, but he was lacking just enough to push himself over the board. But that's one of the things that we get to do when we talk about Prey. Get to give that little nod, that little shout out to his boy Gorilla and how they partnered up in one of the duos, probably one of the most iconic and best duos that we've ever seen from the bot lane.
Yeah, if we're ranking bot laners, they're probably at the top, if not right near the top. So yeah, little shout out to Gorilla to go alongside his pal Prey. With that, we reach the final one on the list for today, number 6, just outside of the top 5, and recent memories wash them away for this guy, because we're talking, a few years ago when you want the peak. We're talking about Smeb, and Smeb at his peak was an absolute joy to watch in the top lane, and he felt like a legitimate rival to Faker for years, which is something you can't often say.
A lot of people now will make any type of claims, Doin B, Rookie, Knight, whatever you want from mid laners from the LPL, stack them up to Faker and all these type of things. It's a very different story when you've got another player in the LCK at Faker's pretty much peak of his
2015, 2016, we're talking.
Of his fame. And to have a lot of analysts look at it and go, you know what? I'm putting Smeb ahead of Faker. That's the type of level that we're talking about back in 2016, 2015 year. That was what Smeb brought to the table. This was the guy that when you're talking about what Nuggery, what the Shy are, they are the completed versions of what the prototype was from
But
Smeb and what
Smeb
he
was
was
even
in the
less
top side.
coin flip than the Shy or Nuggery are. He was almost never feeding or losing lane badly. He was just always dominating.
Right, and that's where I want to take it, because obviously the game evolved and everything else. But as you said, that the coin flip side of those two players that have evolved to be those top lane stars, those carries in that side that you would look at like Smeb, they don't have that. Smeb did not at the time have that coin flip nature. When you're talking about what he was able to do, I think in that period of time, Smeb might have been the most clutch and consistently clutch team fight player in the history of the game. This man was always there. Every team fight, any flank you needed to make, he was there. He was coming in hot, and he had his ultimate ready to go to make sure that that team fight, it was swinging right around in the favor of KT.
Again, we're talking longevity. It's a big one on this list. You're saying 2015 Smeb, basically. Coup Tigers, 2015 summer, right up until KT's last run at Worlds in 2018. He was, most of those years, I'm going to say 3 of those 4 years, the best top laner in Korea, and you could argue best in the world for 3+ years.
And even in that last run at Worlds, right? The 3+ years being the very best at his position. And then again, let alone being the best at your position, good enough that people are arguing that you're better than Faker, which at Faker's peak is impossible to think, right? This dude was insane. And then, as you said, in that run to go to play Worlds, they run into IG. And even in that series, that long series, that full-on 5-game Silver Scrapes against IG in the quarterfinals, you had Smeb going toe-to-toe in that top side, handling if it was going to be Duke, if it was going to be the Shot. I don't care who it's going to be. I'm going to take him down. It didn't matter. Smeb was up to the task, even at that point.
They had to take the Shy out to avoid the tilt after that Game 3 loss where he was so far ahead, but Smeb had the game-winning TP out of his own base. So many highlights to go from for Smeb. And I just love that, 2017, when Rocks Tigers blow up, Peanut says, I'm going to SKT. And Smeb says, I'm going to build a team to take them down.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things that you get a little bit of that glimpse, that personality, right? That you don't always see from some of these players. And to have that type of fire, to have that personality to go, you know what? How easy would it have been to go, you know what? Let me talk to SKT. Let me see if they're interested in adding a Smeb to this super powered roster. What we could do with me in that top side. My man doubled down on himself and his own brand and identity with the team of KT Rolster and said, ain't gonna stand for it, my man. We're gonna build something to be proud of and fight back. And to their credit, they did fight
They
back.
were really good. They had some more heartbreaking losses. That's just the way it is being on KT.
I was gonna say, that's the KT roller coaster life, my man.
But hey, 2 KT players making the cut, number 10 to 6 on this list. All we got left now is the top 5. You can probably do in your head who the 5 are because we haven't done them yet on the list. But
Beacon number 1, here we go.
Yeah, well, Faker just short of the list. He didn't quite crack our top 20, but we'll break the rest down on another episode. That's it today. Thanks for hanging. We'll catch you guys and gals on the flippity flop.